Admiral Isabella Santos stood at the observation deck of the Echo station, her reflection barely visible against the reinforced transparisteel window that looked out into the void of space. The massive orbital platform appeared abandoned and powerless to any external observers, exactly as intended. Behind its dormant exterior, the station housed Earth's most sophisticated stealth technology and served as the command center for humanity's hidden fleet. "Status report," she commanded, her voice carrying the weight of 15 years of preparation for this moment. Lieutenant Marcus Reeves, her tactical officer, responded without looking up from his holographic display. "The Kraxan fleet will enter the solar system within 48 hours, Admiral. All 27 of their capital ships are maintaining their original trajectory. They still haven't detected any of our defensive positions." Isabella allowed herself a small smile. The Kraxan Empire, in their arrogance, had broadcast their intentions across every frequency they could access. Their message had been clear: Earth would submit to their authority or face extinction. They expected to find a primitive civilization barely capable of interplanetary travel, ripe for conquest. "Status of the Ghost Fleet?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. She had personally overseen every aspect of the operation, but protocol demanded regular updates. "All vessels reporting optimal functionality, Admiral," Marcus replied. "The quantum cloak systems are operating at 99.8% efficiency. The Kraxan scanning technology won't detect even a whisper of our presence." The Ghost Fleet represented humanity's greatest technological achievement, a collection of warships equipped with revolutionary stealth systems that bent both light and gravity around their hulls. The project had consumed nearly 20% of Earth's GDP for the past decade, all hidden under the guise of failed space programs and abandoned military initiatives. Commander Priya Patel's voice came through the station's comm system. "Admiral, the Phantom Squadron is in position behind Titan. Strike Group Omega has successfully stationed themselves within the Moon's gravity shadow. All weapon systems are primed and ready." Isabella moved to the central tactical display, watching as tiny dots representing the approaching Kraxan fleet grew steadily larger. The enemy vessels were massive, each capital ship nearly the size of a small city. Their hull configurations suggested an emphasis on overwhelming firepower rather than subtlety or maneuverability, typical of an empire that relied on brute force to maintain control. "They're transmitting again," Marcus announced, his tone carrying a hint of disgust. "Same message as before, primitive beings of Earth, your feudal existence as an independent world ends with our arrival. Submit to the glory of the Kraxan Empire or face annihilation. Your lack of response only confirms your technological inadequacy." Isabella's expression hardened. The Kraxan Empire had subjugated 17 other civilizations using the same tactics: arrive with overwhelming force, demand submission, and crush any resistance with orbital bombardment. Their technological superiority had made them complacent, believing that any civilization without visible orbital defenses must be helpless. "Send an encrypted update to all fleet commanders," Isabella ordered. "Operation Shadowfall begins in 46 hours. Maintain radio silence until then. The Kraxan Empire believes they're approaching a defenseless world, let's ensure that illusion remains intact until the precise moment of engagement." As her officers carried out their duties, Isabella reflected on the years of preparation that had led to this moment. The discovery of the Kraxan Empire's expansion through long-range probes had given Earth the warning it needed. While other worlds had focused on building visible defenses and conventional military might, humanity had chosen a different path. They had embraced deception as their greatest weapon. The quantum cloak technology had been born from this strategy. Dr. Rashid Khan, the brilliant physicist who had first theorized its possibility, had worked himself to death perfecting the system. His last words had been a request to see it deployed in defense of Earth. Isabella intended to honor that request. "Message from General Torres in the lunar base," Marcus reported. "The ground-based EMF generators are fully charged. They can initiate the widespread communication blackout whenever we give the order." Another piece of humanity's trap falling into place. The EMF generators would create a massive electromagnetic storm, cutting off the Kraxan fleet's communication with their home systems at the crucial moment. It was just one of many contingencies planned for the coming battle. Isabella moved to her command station, reviewing the deployment patterns of her hidden fleet one final time. The Kraxan Empire had never faced an enemy they couldn't see, never had to fight an opponent who could strike from any direction without warning. Their rigid military doctrine would become their greatest weakness. Have all civilian populations been moved to the underground shelters? She asked. Affirmative, Commander Patel responded. The evacuation was completed 12 hours ago under the guise of a global civil defense drill. All major cities appear abandoned, adding to our appearance of vulnerability. Isabella nodded in approval. Every detail had been considered, every possible variable accounted for. Earth appeared exactly as the Kraxan Empire expected, a primitive world unable to mount any meaningful defense. That misconception would cost them dearly. Send one final encrypted message to all fleet commanders, Isabella ordered. When Operation Shadowfall begins, we strike as one. The future of Earth depends not on the size of our fleet, but on our ability to prove that humanity's greatest strength lies in our capacity for innovation and strategic thinking. We will show the galaxy that underestimating Earth was their last mistake. As the message was transmitted through quantum-encrypted channels, Isabella returned her gaze to the approaching Kraxan fleet. In less than 2 days, the galaxy would learn a crucial lesson about the danger of judging a civilization's capabilities by its apparent defenses. The age of humanity's silence was about to end, and it would end with thunder. The Kraxan flagship, Eternal Dominion, entered Earth's orbit with the confidence of a predator approaching wounded prey. Supreme Commander Vexthor stood on his command bridge, his scaled hands clasped behind his back as he watched the blue planet rotate beneath his fleet. The planet's apparent defenselessness both pleased and disappointed him. He had hoped for at least a token resistance to crush. Preliminary scans complete, Supreme Commander, his chief sensor officer reported. We detect no orbital defense platforms, no military vessels, and only primitive satellite networks. Their most advanced space facility appears to be an abandoned station in high orbit. Vexthor's secondary eyes blinked in acknowledgement while his primary pair remained fixed on the planet. Begin broadcasting the final warning. Give them 1 standard hour to surrender before we initiate orbital bombardment. It would be inconvenient to damage too much of their infrastructure. Hidden within the quantum-shifted space surrounding the Kraxan fleet, Admiral Santos watched the enemy's deployment pattern with growing anticipation. The massive warships had arranged themselves in a standard bombardment formation, spreading out to ensure maximum coverage of Earth's major population centers. They've taken the bait completely, Lieutenant Reeves whispered, almost in awe. Every single ship is positioned exactly where we predicted they would be. Isabella allowed herself a moment of grim satisfaction. The Kraxan Empire's military doctrine hasn't changed in over a century. They've never needed to evolve because no one has successfully challenged them. Until today. She opened a secure channel to all Ghost Fleet vessels. All ships, maintain position. Weapon systems hot, but do not disengage quantum cloak until my mark. Remember your training, 1 perfect shot is worth more than 100 near misses. The next 58 minutes passed in tense silence. The Kraxan ships loomed over Earth's cities like artificial moons, their weapon ports glowing with barely contained energy. They were so focused on their intended targets below that they never thought to watch the seemingly empty space around them. Final warning broadcast completed, the Kraxan communications officer announced. No response from the primitive government, Supreme Commander. Vexthor's facial scales rippled with satisfaction. As expected. Prepare to fire on my command. Target their largest population centers first, these humans must learn the price of defiance. Energy spike detected in their weapon systems, Commander Patel reported from her position aboard the stealth destroyer, Silent Justice. They're powering up their main guns. Isabella's voice remained steady as she gave the order they had all been waiting for. Operation Shadowfall begins now. All ships, execute attack pattern Omega. Show them why humanity chose to hide in plain sight. The space around the Kraxan fleet suddenly shimmered as dozens of Earth vessels materialized from seemingly nowhere. The Ghost fleet had positioned itself in a three-dimensional web around the enemy, each ship placed to target critical systems on their designated opponents. What treachery is this? Vexthor roared as alerts blared across his bridge. Return fire. Destroy these dash. His orders were cut short as the first wave of Earth's attacks struck home. The Ghost fleet had spent years perfecting weapons designed specifically to counter Kraxan shield technology. Quantum phase torpedoes passed through their defensive barriers as if they didn't exist, while gravity lances disrupted their ship's artificial mass fields. Multiple direct hits confirmed, Marcus reported, his voice tight with controlled excitement. Enemy shields are ineffective against our phase-shifted weapons. Their point defense systems can't track our projectiles through the quantum distortion fields. The space around Earth erupted into chaos as the Kraxan fleet struggled to respond to attacks from enemies they couldn't properly target. Their return fire passed harmlessly through the quantum-cloaked Earth vessels, while precision strikes continued to tear through their defenses. By the first egg, target those ships. Vexthor commanded, his scales now pale with rage and fear. How are they bypassing our shields? Where did they get this technology? Isabella watched as the carefully orchestrated attack unfolded. Each Earth ship had been assigned specific targets and attack vectors, maximizing damage while minimizing the risk of friendly fire. The Ghost fleet moved like dancers in a lethal ballet, appearing and disappearing at will as they struck from constantly changing positions. Strike Group Omega, focus fire on their command ships, she ordered. Phantom Squadron, begin your attack run on their engineering sections. Don't let them regroup or establish a defensive formation. The Kraxan fleet's attempts to coordinate a response fell apart as their communications were disrupted by the lunar EMF generators. Cut off from both their homeworld and each other, each ship was forced to fight independently against an enemy they could barely detect. Supreme Commander, we've lost contact with the Empire, the Kraxan communications officer reported frantically. Our long-range communications are being blocked by some kind of electromagnetic storm. We can barely maintain ship-to-ship communication. Vexthor watched in horror as 3 of his heaviest cruisers were systematically disabled by weapons he couldn't understand. The humans weren't just fighting back, they were winning, and doing so with a level of technological sophistication that should have been impossible for such a supposedly primitive species. All ships, break orbit, he commanded over the failing communication channels. Regroup at the designated fallback position. We must dash. His orders were interrupted by a direct hit to his flagship's bridge shields. The quantum phase torpedo passed through multiple layers of energy barriers before detonating against the armored hull, sending shockwaves throughout the massive vessel. Direct hit on the Eternal Dominion's command center, Commander Patel reported. Their bridge shields are down, and we're detecting multiple hull breaches. Isabella nodded grimly. Press the advantage. Don't let them retreat and regroup. The Kraxan Empire ends its expansion here, at Earth. The battle continued to unfold with mechanical precision as the Ghost fleet executed their years of training. Earth ships would appear just long enough to fire their specialized weapons before vanishing again into quantum-shifted space, making it impossible for the Kraxan vessels to establish target locks or launch effective counterattacks. Admiral, Marcus called out, his voice urgent. We're detecting power surges in several enemy vessels. They appear to be attempting to activate their faster-than-light drives. Not today, Isabella responded. Activate the gravity anchor networks. Let's see how their FTL systems handle localized spacetime distortions. Hidden platforms around Earth's orbit came to life, generating overlapping fields of twisted spacetime that made faster-than-light travel impossible within the battle zone. The Kraxan ships were trapped, forced to face an enemy that had prepared for their every move. This is impossible. Vexthor raged as another volley of quantum-phased weapons struck his flagship. No primitive world could have developed this level of technology in secret. No species could have hidden such military capability from our scouts. But humanity had done exactly that, turning their perceived weakness into their greatest strength. The Ghost Fleet continued its relentless assault, systematically dismantling the most powerful invasion force the Kraxan Empire had ever assembled. As she watched the battle unfold exactly as planned, Isabella thought of all the sacrifices that had led to this moment. The years of living under a facade of technological inadequacy, the resources poured into secret research and development, the countless hours of training in ships that officially didn't exist. "Send word to all ships," she commanded. "Phase 2 begins now. Show them that humanity's deception goes far deeper than they imagined." Phase 2 of Operation Shadowfall began with a silent signal from Echo Station. Throughout the solar system, hundreds of automated defense platforms shed their quantum cloaks, revealing themselves in perfect attack positions around the battered Kraxan fleet. What the Empire had dismissed as space debris and asteroidal fragments were actually humanity's automated weapons platforms, waiting dormant for this precise moment. By the ancient void, Vexthor whispered as his tactical display lit up with hundreds of new contacts. "They've weaponized their entire solar system." The automated platforms began their attack in perfect synchronization, launching swarms of autonomous strike drones. Each drone was barely larger than a human fighter craft, but carried enough firepower to threaten a Kraxan cruiser. More importantly, they were expendable. Humanity had spent years manufacturing them in secret underground facilities. "Drone swarms engaging enemy targets," Lieutenant Reeves reported. "Their point defense systems are overwhelmed. They can't track our quantum-shifted ships and handle the drone attacks simultaneously." Isabella watched as the carefully orchestrated chaos unfolded. The Ghost Fleet had forced the Kraxan ships into defensive positions, and now the automated platforms were exploiting every weakness in their formation. It was like watching a master chess player spring a trap that had been dozen moves in the making. "Status of the enemy fleet," she demanded, though the tactical displays told their own story. 17 capital ships showing critical damage, Commander Patel responded. "Their formation is breaking apart. We're detecting multiple reactor breaches and system failures across their fleet." But the Kraxan Empire hadn't conquered 17 worlds by giving up easily. Even as their ships burned and their crews fought for survival, they began to adapt. The remaining vessels clustered together, combining their shield generators to create overlapping fields of protection. "Clever," Isabella admitted, watching the enemy's defensive reorganization. "But expected. Commander Patel, signal the Phantom Squadron. Execute maneuver Shadowbreaker." Deep within the moon's gravity shadow, Earth's most advanced stealth vessels began a carefully planned approach. The Phantom Squadron comprised 6 ships built specifically for this phase of the battle, each one carrying a prototype weapon that humanity had hoped they wouldn't need to use. "This is Commander Patel to all Phantom Squadron vessels. Deploy gravity bombs on my mark. Target their shield overlap points." The gravity bombs were perhaps humanity's most terrifying creation, weapons that created localized singularities, microscopic black holes that existed for mere seconds before evaporating in bursts of Hawking radiation. They couldn't be blocked by energy shields, and their effects ignored conventional armor. "Gravity bombs armed," came the response from Phantom Squadron. "Awaiting deployment orders." On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, Vexthor was reaching a similar moment of desperation. "Deploy the Worldbreaker missiles," he commanded. "If we cannot conquer this world, we will make an example of it." Warning alerts flashed across Echo Station's tactical displays as the Kraxan ships began launching their most powerful weapons, planet-killing missiles designed to penetrate to a world's core before detonating. "Multiple Worldbreaker missiles detected," Marcus announced, his voice tight with concern. "Tracking 20, no, 30 separate launches." Isabella's expression remained calm. This too had been anticipated. "Activate the quantum mine fields." Show them why we let them enter orbit so easily. Space itself seemed to shimmer as another layer of humanity's defenses revealed itself. What had appeared to be empty space between Earth and the Kraxan fleet was actually filled with quantum-shifted minds, each one programmed to interact with specific energy signatures. The Worldbreaker missiles, powerful enough to destroy planets, never made it past the first layer of minds. Each one was caught in a web of quantum disruption fields, their guidance systems scrambled before they could lock onto planetary targets. Now, Commander Patel, Isabella ordered. While they're distracted by the missile failures, execute Shadowbreaker. The Phantom Squadron struck from 6 different vectors simultaneously, their gravity bombs creating spheres of distorted spacetime that tore through the Kraxan ship's overlapping shields. Matter itself warped and twisted where the weapons detonated, ripping apart hull plating and exposing vital systems to space. Direct hits confirmed, Commander Patel reported. Their shield matrix is collapsing. Multiple ships reporting catastrophic hull failures. Vexthor stared at his tactical displays in disbelief as his fleet's supposedly impenetrable defense was torn apart by weapons that defied conventional physics. How? He demanded of no one in particular. How did they develop all of this in secret? The answer, of course, was simple: humanity had never been the primitive species the Kraxan Empire believed them to be. Every failed space program, every apparently abandoned military project, had been part of an elaborate deception. While the Empire watched for visible signs of advancement, humanity had poured its resources into technologies that couldn't be detected. Supreme Commander, his tactical officer called out, voice shaking. We're detecting more anomalies. The humans, they've done something to local spacetime. Our faster-than-light drives won't function, and sublight engines are operating at reduced efficiency. Isabella allowed herself a small smile. The gravity anchor networks were performing exactly as designed, creating a web of spatial distortions that trapped the Kraxan fleet in normal space. They couldn't escape, couldn't call for reinforcements, and couldn't even maneuver effectively. All ships, execute final attack pattern, she commanded. Target their remaining command and control systems. It's time to end this. The Ghost Fleet and automated platforms struck in perfect coordination, their quantum-phased weapons passing through the remnants of Kraxan shields while swarms of drones overwhelmed their point defenses. Ships that had previously terrorized entire star systems found themselves being systematically dismantled by an enemy they still couldn't effectively target. Admiral, Marcus called out, we're detecting emergency shutdown sequences in multiple enemy vessels. They're powering down their weapons. The first surrender signals began broadcasting on all frequencies as Kraxan ship captains realized the futility of continued resistance. Their mighty fleet, pride of the Empire, had been defeated by a world they had dismissed as primitive. This is Supreme Commander Vexthor of the Eternal Dominion, a transmission cut through the chaos of battle. We request terms of surrender. Isabella straightened her uniform before responding. This is Admiral Santos of Earth's Defense Force. Your surrender is accepted, under the condition that you transmit all technical specifications of your vessels to us immediately. We want to ensure there are no further surprises. As the Kraxan crews began powering down their ships and preparing for boarding, Isabella turned to her command staff. Send word to all Earth forces, Operation Shadowfall is complete. But maintain quantum cloak protocols. Let's not show them all our cards just yet. The battle was over, but humanity's emergence onto the galactic stage was just beginning. The galaxy would soon learn that appearances could be deceiving, and that sometimes the most dangerous opponent was the one you never saw coming. News of the Kraxan Empire's defeat spread through subspace channels like a shockwave. On 17 subjugated worlds, enslaved species watched in disbelief as encrypted transmissions revealed the unthinkable: the mighty Kraxan fleet had been utterly defeated by a supposedly primitive world on the galaxy's outer rim. In the aftermath of the battle, Admiral Santos stood in Echo Station's main conference chamber, facing the captured Kraxan command staff. Supreme Commander Vexthor's scales had lost their lustrous sheen, now a dull gray that reflected his fallen status. "You understand what happens next," Isabella stated, not bothering to phrase it as a question. "Your empire's expansion ends here. Earth will ensure that every world you've conquered learns of this defeat, and of the technology we possess." "You don't understand what you're doing," Vexthor responded, his secondary eyes blinking rapidly in distress. "The Empire's response to this will be non-existent," Isabella interrupted. "Because at this very moment, quantum-cloaked Earth vessels are positioned near every major Kraxan military installation. The Empire won't risk another engagement when they don't know how many more ships we have, or where they might be." Lieutenant Reeves entered the chamber, his datapad displaying real-time updates from across the sector. "Admiral, we're receiving reports from our deep space monitoring stations. The Kraxan Empire has begun withdrawing forces from their occupied worlds. They're consolidating their fleet around their core systems." Fear was an emotion the Kraxan rarely showed, but it was evident in Vexthor's rigid posture. His species had evolved from apex predators, and they understood the implications of facing a superior hunter. Earth hadn't just defeated their fleet, they had shattered the foundation of Kraxan military doctrine. "Tell me," Isabella asked, genuine curiosity in her voice, "did it never occur to your empire that a species might choose to appear weak? That strength could be found in letting others underestimate you?" Before Vexthor could respond, Commander Patel's hologram materialized in the chamber. "Admiral, we're detecting significant political upheaval within Kraxan space. Multiple colony worlds are declaring independence, and at least 3 fleet commanders have refused orders to maintain their positions." It was exactly as Earth's strategic analysts had predicted. The Kraxan Empire's authority rested on an illusion of invincibility. Once that illusion was shattered, the underlying structure began to crack. "Your empire made a fundamental mistake," Isabella continued, addressing the captured commanders. "You judged technological advancement by its visibility. The more a civilization showed off its capabilities, the more advanced you assumed it to be." She gestured to a holographic display showing Earth's Ghost Fleet, now partly decloaked and conducting recovery operations. "Humanity chose a different path. We hid our advancements, letting potential enemies see what they expected to see. Every failed launch, every apparent setback, was carefully orchestrated. The implications of this strategy were only now becoming clear to the Kraxan leadership. Their entire intelligence apparatus had been compromised, not by infiltration or sabotage, but by their own assumptions. They had watched Earth for years, seeing exactly what humanity wanted them to see. "Orders from the Admiralty Board, ma'am," Marcus announced, entering the chamber. "Operation Revelation is approved. We're to begin technological sharing with the formerly subjugated worlds." Isabella nodded. This too had been part of the plan. Earth wouldn't just defeat the Kraxan Empire, they would ensure it could never threaten another world again. By sharing defensive technology with liberated planets, they would create a network of protected worlds capable of resisting future aggression. "The quantum cloak technology alone will transform the balance of power," she explained to the captured commanders. "But we're also providing them with gravity anchor networks and automated defense platforms. Your empire's era of unchallenged expansion is over." Reports continued to flood in from across the sector. The Kraxan Empire's carefully maintained hierarchy was collapsing as subordinate species seized the opportunity to break free. Worlds that had lived under occupation for generations were rising up, protected by the same technological secrets that had safeguarded Earth. "Admiral," Commander Patel's hologram flickered with urgency. "We're detecting unusual activity in the Kraxan home system. Their central fleet is mobilizing, but they're moving to defensive positions. They're fortifying their core worlds." Isabella allowed herself a grim smile. The Empire's response wasn't aggression, it was fear. They were pulling back, abandoning their conquests in a desperate attempt to protect their homeland from an enemy they couldn't see or predict. "Your empire built its power on visible strength," she told Vexthor. Massive ships, obvious weapons, displays of overwhelming force. But humanity? We built our strength in shadows and silence. Every world you conquered watched us, learning from our example. And now they know it's possible to defeat you. The captured commander's scales rippled with a complex emotion that had no human equivalent. You haven't just defeated our fleet, he realized. You've changed the fundamental dynamics of galactic politics. No species will ever trust surface appearances again. That's exactly right, Isabella confirmed. The age of obvious power is over. From now on, every empire and alliance will have to consider what their rivals might be hiding. The galaxy will never be the same. As if to emphasize her point, new reports arrived showing the spread of rebellion throughout cracks in space. Species that had been conquered centuries ago were emerging from submission, protected by Earth's shared technology. The Empire's attempt to consolidate power around their core worlds had created a vacuum, and that vacuum was being filled by newly liberated civilizations. Your empire will survive, Isabella assured the captured commanders. But it will survive as one power among many, not as the unchallenged force it once was. Earth's emergence onto the galactic stage hasn't just changed the balance of power, it's changed the nature of power itself. Commander Patel's hologram updated with fresh intelligence. Admiral, we're detecting widespread adoption of quantum cloak technology among the liberated worlds. The cracks in Empire's remaining sensor networks are effectively blind. They can no longer monitor or control their former territories. It was the final confirmation of their strategy's success. Earth hadn't just defended itself, it had fundamentally transformed the galactic order. In a matter of days, the carefully maintained hierarchy of the Kraxan Empire had been replaced by a new reality, one where invisible strength counted for more than visible power. Send word to all Earth forces, Isabella ordered. Operation Shadowfall is complete. But maintain quantum cloak protocols on all vessels and installations. In this new galaxy we've created, the ability to hide our strength will remain our greatest advantage. 6 months after the Battle of Earth, Admiral Isabella Santos stood before the newly formed Galactic Conclave. Representatives from over 30 species filled the massive chamber, including delegates from both formerly subjugated worlds and independent systems that had witnessed the fall of the Kraxan Empire. The Kraxan themselves sat in a small section, their once dominant position reduced to that of equal participants. The galaxy stands at a crossroads, Isabella began, her voice carrying across the chamber. The old order, built on visible displays of power and military might, has given way to a new reality. Earth's victory wasn't just about superior technology, it was about understanding that true strength often lies in what remains unseen. Holographic displays showed the transformation that had swept through known space. The former Kraxan territories had fragmented into a network of independent worlds, each protected by Earth's shared defensive technologies. The quantum cloak systems had proven particularly revolutionary, allowing even small civilizations to maintain effective planetary defense forces. In the 6 months since Operation Shadowfall, Isabella continued, we've witnessed the emergence of a new form of galactic diplomacy. When no one can be certain of another civilization's true capabilities, the rush to conflict slows. Negotiation becomes preferable to confrontation. The statistics supported her assessment. Interstellar conflicts had dropped by 70% since Earth's victory. The mere possibility that any world might possess hidden defensive capabilities had transformed military doctrine across known space. Commander Patel, now promoted to Admiral herself, presented the next section of the briefing. The foundation for galactic security that Earth has proposed isn't about creating a new empire. It's about ensuring that no species ever again faces the threat of extinction from a technologically superior force. The Foundation's principles were elegantly simple. Earth would continue sharing defensive technologies with peaceful civilizations, while maintaining a network of quantum-cloaked monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. Any species that attempted to follow the Kraxan Empire's path of conquest would find themselves facing not just their intended target, but a coalition of hidden defenders. Lieutenant Reeves, recently promoted to commander, managed the technical briefing. The quantum cloak technology has evolved beyond its military origins. We're seeing applications in scientific research, exploration, and even commercial shipping. The ability to hide has become as valuable as the ability to defend. The implications reached far beyond military concerns. Species that had once competed openly for resources now conducted their operations in secret, leading to a decrease in territorial disputes. The galaxy's economy had shifted away from visible displays of wealth and power toward more subtle forms of influence. But perhaps the most significant change, Isabella observed, has been in how civilizations view themselves and their place in the galaxy. The assumption that visible advancement equals actual capability has been permanently shattered. The Craxan delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Their empire, while still intact around their core worlds, had been transformed. Without their subject worlds' resources and labor, they had been forced to develop new economic models. Their military, once focused entirely on offensive capability, had been rebuilt around defensive operations. Earth's emergence onto the galactic stage wasn't just about defeating an empire, Isabella continued. It was about proving that any species, no matter how apparently primitive, might be more than they appear. This understanding has led to a fundamental shift in how civilizations interact. The evidence was visible in the chamber itself. Species that had once been dismissed as primitive or unworthy of attention now sat as equals in the conclave. The hierarchy that had dominated galactic politics for centuries had been replaced by a new order based on mutual respect and uncertainty. The Foundation's next phase, Commander Reeves announced, involves the establishment of rapid response teams equipped with our latest quantum cloak technology. These teams will be staffed by volunteers from all member worlds, ready to defend any civilization that faces unprovoked aggression. The proposal was met with widespread approval. The galaxy had learned from Earth's example. The best defense wasn't a visible show of force, but the uncertainty it created in potential aggressors' minds. But perhaps the most profound change, Isabella noted, has been cultural. Species across the galaxy have begun questioning their own assumptions about strength and weakness, visibility and power. The age of empirical judgment has given way to one of careful consideration and diplomatic engagement. She gestured to the star map showing the transformed galaxy. The Craxan Empire's defeat taught us all a crucial lesson: true power isn't about what you can show, but what you can achieve. Earth didn't win because we were inherently superior, we won because we understood that sometimes the greatest strength lies in being underestimated. The conclave session concluded with the ratification of the Foundation's charter. Earth would serve not as a dominant power, but as a guardian of galactic stability. Their fleet remained largely hidden, their true military capability unknown, serving as a constant reminder that visible strength was no longer the ultimate measure of power. The galaxy enters a new era, Isabella concluded. One where peace is maintained not through visible deterrence, but through the understanding that any aggressor might face consequences they never saw coming. Earth's victory wasn't just about defeating an empire, it was about creating a future where wisdom counts for more than weapons, and where the appearance of weakness might mask unprecedented strength. As the delegates filed out of the chamber, Isabella reflected on the transformation she had witnessed. The galaxy had changed not through overwhelming force, but through the power of hidden capability and strategic deception. Earth's greatest victory hadn't been in defeating the Craxan Empire, but in showing the galaxy a new way to maintain peace. Admiral, Commander Reeves approached with a final update: the last of the quantum defense networks has been installed around the former Craxan subject worlds. The Foundation's protective grid is complete. Isabella nodded, satisfaction evident in her expression. Then our work here is done. Signal the fleet, it's time to disappear again. In this new galaxy we've helped create, our greatest power still lies in remaining unseen, ready to emerge only when needed. The Ghost Fleet, still largely hidden from view, prepared to return to their patrol routes throughout known space. Earth had transformed from a seemingly primitive world to the hidden guardian of galactic peace, proving that sometimes the most effective power is the one that nobody sees coming. As Echo Station resumed its appearance of abandonment and dormancy, Isabella allowed herself a moment of pride. Humanity had not just survived its first contact with a hostile galaxy, they had fundamentally changed how that galaxy understood the nature of power itself. The age of visible empires was over, replaced by an era where true strength lay in what remained hidden, and peace was maintained by the simple question that now haunted every potential aggressor: what aren't we seeing?